Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. I am so excited to be here with each of you tonight. This is going to be a great time, and I am so excited because I get to bring on a phenomenal guest. Now, before I bring this rock star on my show, I want to let you guys know some announcements. So first things first, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on Swain Girl Media Channel, which is hosted by Precious Swain on Firestick. So you can go there to see the show. In addition to that, the Let's Get Gritty podcast will also be featured on SoulNet WKDH online radio station as well. So you can go there to see the replays of the show. It's going to be an amazing time. Now, I also wanted to encourage you to follow me on social media so that we can connect. So my social media handles are for Facebook, it's Miss India White. That's MSINDIAWHITE. For LinkedIn, it's The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. That is INDI, P as in Paul, E as in egg, AKN, and the word teach. And then Twitter is going to be iWhite, BIL. That's if you're education and you're wanting, stuff about big ideas. And then my other Twitter is, I already said it. Go Gators. It's Indie Speak and Teach. And then, of course, Instagram is Indie238. And my YouTube channel is India White 123. So I am thrilled. I can't wait to connect with you guys. I know we're going to have a great time together. Let's see how we can connect. How can we do business? How can we, just make it happen? How can we use our grit together to thrive? So with that said, I also want to remind you to check out my website at www.india-white.com for further blogs, books, or to schedule me for your next speaking or coaching event. I am here for you. So with that said, I am now excited to bring on a rock star here, someone who has been a community advocate, someone who supported those in her environment. She has used grit to her advantage to pay it forward to other people in areas of domestic violence and more. And she is a business owner. Help me welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast, none other than Darnitha Johnson. Hello, Darnitha. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am doing great. It is so fabulous to see you and to have you on this podcast. So, Darnitha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a 48-year-old community activist, domestic violence survivor. I'm also a community resource. I also am married to my high school sweetheart since October. I have 3 children, two boys and 1 girl. And I'm pretty much a laid-back person that just loves life and help my community.
Very nice. I love it. I like how you're so big on your community. So you were saying that you're a speaker, you're a community advocate, you're a domestic violence advocate. And so this show, Darnitha, really kind of talks about grit, and it talks about just how you're able to use grit. And during my TEDx talk in TEDx Ocala, I was able to talk about grit. And I defined it as great resilience in time. Mm-hmm. How do you define grit? Talk to us.
Oh, God. Just being that strong person to just go through everything that I have went through and still come out on top and
Excellent.
Just let people know that, hey, you can make it through anything. You could just, you don't have to be stuck in that mindset of that I'm just in this position and I won't make it out. So you, like you say, you have to be resilient. You have to be great. You have to know who you are.
Wow. That's powerful. And I'm so glad that you said that. And when you're saying knowing who you are, and I know you're a community engagement specialist, you're doing so much. Tell us, you said that you survived domestic violence. That took grit. How were you able to go from surviving that to now using that same grit to help others? Tell us a little bit about your story.
I was married to my ex-husband, which is now deceased, in 1996. And at first, when I met my husband, I did not like him. It was something about him. I always tell people to go with your intuition. But it was like, okay, you dated all these jocks and these muscular, and he was like nerdy. But it was just something about him I didn't like. So I gave him a chance. We started dating, and I was pregnant. I had my daughter before I even had met him. So I was pregnant at that time. And he told me, he said, basically, I'll be there. And when you're in high school, you know, I was always picked at. I was always called Big Bird Olive Oil. So I said, okay, this is somebody that's going to be there for me, not knowing when I had my daughter that it would turn very violent. He went from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde. You know,
Wow.
it became verbal abuse at first, and then it led to physical abuse. From 1996 up until 2005, I endured loss in hearing in my right ear. I have been drugged down driveways. I have been beaten with in my ribs, black eyes, you know, these different things. And then once the abuse turned on my children, because at that time my husband, he was a truck driver, and he wanted to basically have sex with me. And I'm like, I'm not having sex with you because I don't know, they call them lot lizards. So I don't know if you're in this different town, you're having sex with whoever. So I wouldn't. So at one point I started sleeping on the couch. My daughter, she was like, Mom, why are you sleeping on the couch? You don't really want to explain things to children. So I went and I got in the bed. And then at that point, my husband was saying, you are my wife. You're going to have sex with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Mind you, he had already asked me before to have a threesome. And that's something that I did not believe in. So I wouldn't do it. So I got in the bed. And at that point, when he's telling me you're going to have sex with me, I said, no. He proceeded to choke me. He proceeded to beat me in my ribs. And my kids are in the next room. I'm trying to scream. They're sleeping. This is like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And at that point, he's trying to pry open my legs. And I never knew how strong our legs were, but I kept my legs closed. And at that point, that made me more angry. So he just started beating me more. And once he saw me blacking, like going out, he stopped choking me. And at that point, I got up and I ran to the bathroom, because at that point I felt like a rape victim, even though it wasn't penetrated. But once you tell your significant other or your husband, or whoever it may be, no, that's still considered attempt rape, because you're married, but it's considered rape. So at that time I got in there and I'm taking a shower. I'm feeling like nasty. And he comes in there, oh, I'll never do it again. I didn't leave because my children were in the next room. And he always told me, if you leave me, I will kill you and kill them, put them in the truck and dispose of you. So I didn't leave them. So I stayed. And he begged and he begged. And we went to church New Year's Eve. That was a Saturday that happened going into Sunday. So we went to church, and you know how you hug everybody and kiss everybody when it strikes 12. I was just like a mummy. Through all of this, I was saying, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. His sister promised to help me leave. And that's another thing with family of your exes. They will promise you anything at that point. But when it's time for you to leave and you end up calling the police on them and they go to jail, you're the worst person in the world. You're evil. You're this and that. So when 12 o'clock came, I was just sitting there, just rocking back and forth and shaking. Never hugged him, because at that I'm bruised. Put on enough makeup to cover up my face, but I'm so bruised I can't even move straight. You have to fake it till you make it. So that next day, he walked to his mom's house. I didn't go. And so his mom was like, well, where's Dawn? Because they call me Dawn. Oh, she's home. She's sick. She's laying down. Didn't tell her what you did, which she knows that her son was abusive because his father was abusive to her. But her thing was, don't put him in jail. It'll get better. So that's how he started to do abusive things, because he saw what his father did to his mother. So at that point, the next month, that Monday, I went to work. I had just started this job, and I would say this lady is God sent angel, which she's now my godmother. I went into work. It was a meeting, and her daughter, she was in her office, and her daughter was sitting out with the other employee, and she saw my face, and she said, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Nothing. Shut up." So at that point, She was like, no, I'm telling my mom. And I'm like, shut up. So she went and told her mom. She came out, and I'm not even I can't even say the words on here. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the words on here, but she was very angry. So she got me, she put me in the police car. I think we got there in 5 minutes flat. At that time, he was working in Silver Spring Shores, which is in Ocala. The police officer, they issued the warrant. They got him arrested. I left the house that I lived in with him and my children, and the car that he had in his name, but I was using it. I left with just the car and just the clothes on my back and my children, and I left. She found us a house and we moved in it. He at first didn't have rights to see the children, but the judge became lenient and let him see. And he would always ask them, where do you guys live? The kids, they're small, live by a swamp. So he still didn't find out until HRS disclosed my address on a paper, which they shouldn't have because it was confidentiality. Yeah. He found me. He came and pulled up in the driveway, and I always slept light. And I saw light shining through my window, and I got on my knees and I climbed down and I looked out the window peeping, and he saw me. He pointed to let me know like this, I know where you are. So I had to leave there. This man stalked me up until 2009 when he got killed. And he was already engaged with someone. They were, because we had got a divorce, and she was pregnant. And he got killed in front of my children that day of 2009 of January.
Whoa. How did he get killed? What happened?
He was always known as a bully. You know, his mom had the little candy store in the neighborhood, and the kids would come. So this one particular boy grew up in the neighborhood, and he would always bully him when he came there. So one day when he was able to see the kids, he came down, and I dropped the kids off there, and I took my daughter home with me to do homework. They were walking down the road. He was teaching the kids how to ride the bike and talking and questioning as usual. And the guy and the girl was speeding down the road. He yelled at him, slow down. They exchanged words. The car backed up. The girl backed up the car. The boy was on the passenger side, and he stood in front of the car, and he was slamming down on the hood, cursing and yelling. The kids are right next to him at this point. And after he walked around to the passenger side and he was yelling at the boy, pointing at him, and the boy said something smart, he slapped him across the nose in the car. The boy pulled out the gun out of the passenger door side, shot him point blank with the children there. Thank God that they were covered because he could have killed them. So at that point, my oldest son, he got his dad, and he's no more than at that point 3 foot, 4 foot, maybe if that, and was holding him. And he walked his dad to the door. His dad yelled out, Mom, I've been shot. And he fell dead in front of the children in his mom's front door. So yeah, they're now 25, 22, and 20. So they've seen a lot.
This so this is a different type of grit. This is more than just having resilience. This is having grit to the point of surviving. I first want to just back up and say that I'm proud of you for all of the resilience you've had over the years to, one, endure abuse, to stay under abuse because you loved someone that obviously did not love you or didn't understand how to love you. Yes. And the fact that you've been able to also you've been able to also cultivate grit for your children and help them because they needed you, and for them to witness their father dying. I'm sure that there's unfortunately, some traumatic things that they also are going through. And so I'm sure that you also have to help guide them through that. But I wanted to first commend you and from the bottom of my heart say, I'm so thankful that you are still here. Domestic violence is nothing to sweep under the rug. And I think the fact that you loved your life enough to fight says it all. And I'm happy that you were able to get that place and start over and look at you now. And so I want to, just extend that to you. And then I want to move into my next question, which I think is going to talk about talk about a spiritual time when you used grit.
I have to not get emotional about this. Okay. I told you I had 3 children. I actually had 4 children. One passed away at 2 months old.
Mm.
She had trisomy 18. And out of trisomy 18, there's maybe 5-10% of survival. They usually don't make it through birth. She made it through 2 months. That's when my spiritual aspect, I always knew God, always knew, because I was brought up in the church with my grandmother. But at that point, God showed me and she showed me who God was. I prayed every day. She stayed in the hospital 2 months of her life, came home twice. Before they would let her come home twice, I had to learn how to do CPR. That was my first encounter of CPR. So when she first came home, no one would keep her because she had tubes down her throat because she couldn't swallow. She had holes in her heart, so she had to be on a heart monitor 24 hours. She was pretty much feeding tube everything. She was 24-hour care. But when she did come home, I would have to perform CPR on her because she would just code. So at that point, I would always, God, why me? Why me? And I learned why me because she was the reason. She was the angel to get closer to God because I was going through the domestic violence. I wasn't caring how I looked, cut my hair. I didn't care about me anymore. My thing was my children and surviving. So the last point of it was October 31st. No, I'm sorry, October 30th of 2001. Sorry, 2001. Because she was born on August 9th. And she died the day before my son's birthday, the one that saw his father killed. So that morning, the doctors, they called me, they said, you need to get here. That was the first day of school of all the children. And as a parent, as you know, you want to be there that first day. You're going to cry like a mother, even though you're letting them go to school. So I said, okay, I'll be there after I take them. They said, no, you need to get here now. And so I got on I-75. I've never drove 100 and something in my life. The sheriff is the state trooper sitting on the side of the road. I just threw my hand up. At that point, I'm supposed to be going to jail because I'm driving that fast. They didn't move.
Right.
So I was like, that has to be God. I got to the hospital and I got there. And I never saw a priest before besides on TV. I saw the priest. I saw the neurologist, the cardiac doctor. I saw all of them there. And I'm like, okay, this is not good. And they said, this time, if she codes, we're not going to bring her back. And I just paused. And then the priest took me to the side and she said, I need to talk to you. She said, it's time. She said, because I had brought all these little crosses and everything. And she had just got christened the week before, that Sunday. And then she said, it's time for her to go. And the only way she's going to go, you have to tell her it's okay because she's holding on for you. So at that time, I said, I can't do this. So they placed the baby in my arms and I looked at her and eyes are big. You know, she just looks up at me and I had to look at her and said, it's okay for you to go. At that time, she coded in my arms and she looked at me, smiled and passed away. And at that point, I knew that she was my angel. I knew that God brought her there to be able to bring me closer. And if I didn't have that experience, I probably wouldn't be here now. I probably wouldn't be the strong person I am today. I probably would have just given up even before then, because I was giving up then. There was so much that, you know, a person could take. But with her, she gave me that strength. She brought me so close to God that now my bond with God is unbreakable. So that's why. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's emotional for anyone that has children, and those that can empathize. So, wow, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Wow. But you know, she is your angel, right? So,
Yes.
girlfriend, you have been through it, but that just means that there are so many that you can now help push through. tough times like this. And I think this is a very special show because sometimes we hear grit and it's like, oh, let's work out. Or, we hear grit, let's finish that assignment. But, like even in my TEDx, I mentioned you're going to have times of grief. You're going to have to bounce back. And this is now where, how were you able to take that grit and use it, to bounce back and to be professional? And so how were you able to even take grit with all of these hurts and griefs and things that you're going through and say, no matter what, I'm now going to be successful. I'm now going to be this business owner. I'm now going to, change my world. Talk to us. How did you do that?
I took that grit and I used it because I have 3 other children. I had to make sure that okay. And then putting another child on me, which was my cousin's child. At that point, she was going through some things. So that's 4 children, excluding the one that passed away. So I had to take that and put myself aside and say, I have to create a better life for these children. And whatever parents that may be going through trisomy 18 or whatever condition that their children may have, wow. I had to keep them informed. And then I had to take my experience through my ex-in-laws trying to take my children from me. I had to become strong. I had to be my own attorney. At that point, you're a single mom, no funds. So I had to represent myself because, as when another parent dies, the children get Social Security. And at that point, you're trying to use my children just to get money. You don't care about their well-being, but you just want the money. So I had to take every strength and every aspect of, spirituality, knowledge that I didn't even know about law, because that was always my passion to want to do something I never pursued. But I had to take that and go to law libraries and study and to learn what different avenues I had to take. And, even with domestic violence, I even started, working at the shelter, helping other women at night, So I took everything that I could, resourceful, and used it and put myself aside basically, but it was all for my children and to better everyone else.
Wow. So then tell us this, when it comes down to utilizing grit for success. Now you're a business owner. So I want you to talk about that and, going back to school and things like that. Talk to us because we've been left with all the grief and the things you've survived. That grit in you was like, no, I've got to make it through this. Of course, grit, faith, and all. But now when it comes down to utilizing grit for success, what advice would you give to a listener today?
Even through the pain, the agony, the depression, the loss, I created my own organization, Royal Queens Women Empowerment Incorporated.
Fabulous.
Because I feel like all women are, royal. You're queens. We have to empower each other.
Yes.
We're women with a lot of strength, even though we may not feel like it, we are. So I just started with that. I created the name. Then I worked up to, get the money to turn it into an incorporation. And at that point, I started just going out and speaking to different places like churches and things like that. And then I said, you know what, that's not enough. I worked in the medical field. It's always my passion to help someone. And I would diagnose people before the doctor would. And they said, why aren't you a doctor? And I'm like, it's just in me. So from there, COVID just burnt me out from the medical. I was in there for a long time. And then I said, you know what? I'm going back into the domestic violence shelter. This is my passion. So I incorporate Royal Queens Women Empowerment with that, with the shelter. Now I go out, I have awareness. I teach women how to survive. I teach them the warning signs. I give them all the things that they need, even in dating. A lot of women don't know, like I told you, once you tell your spouse or significant other no, and they take it, that's rape. They can be charged. They can be put away. But a lot of women, they just sit back and they endure these type of things.
Have you ever thought of also talking to the men or to the partner? But usually, I'm talking in heterosexual and even just other, relationship, situations, that other partner needs to hear this as well, because I think that sometimes, like I've heard of people, males that are born sexually as, identified, their sex is identified as male. I've heard some of them talk about how frustrating that can be when they are denied, especially by their partner, their wife, or their spouse, whoever, how that can really kind of set them off, like, and they don't know how to cope. So I don't know if you also help them to kind of cultivate a way of life so that they're not victimizing those that they do love. So.
Yeah, I talk to men, I talk to women, I talk to whatever walk of life you're in. And the main thing of it is, it's like communication is the key. You have to communicate with your significant other, regardless of what role it's in.
Yes.
And even if your partner says no, you have to understand, what are they saying no for? What is the reason?
Right.
You have to not just assume, oh, they're cheating or they're doing something else. You need to get down, like you say, to the nitty gritty and find out what's going on. Why am I being denied? They could have something going on with their body, or they could just be going through something. So don't, get so aggressive and say, oh, my partner, they're not giving it, I'm just going to take it. No, because then you're putting yourself in a situation that you may be locked up. So talk, find out what's going on. I don't care if it's a man with a man, a woman with a woman, a man with a wife, or whatever it may be. Find out the root of what's going on before it, escalates to something that's not good.
I just think that people need to have enough grit to care, to talk. Sometimes I think certain individuals aren't prone to opening up and having communication. So they're more to themselves, more reserved. They keep everything in, and it bottles up. And then it's just weird. Like, communication's weird. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to interact. So I don't know how people can get enough grit to grit. Like, I don't know if you have any suggestions. Maybe you can coach people through what would they do in a situation where it is awkward and it's silence, and there's a big elephant in the room and they don't know how to break down those walls and those silos.
A good tool to use. Okay, you get a notebook and you write down the pros and the cons of what the situation may be. Okay, I'm just gonna pretty much say, like, what you like about the person, what you don't like, what they're doing that you don't like, or what you're doing that they do like. Whichever one outweighs, instead of you voicefully talking about it, you're writing it down and you exchange it with your other partner. That way they can see, and that will start, that communication verbally. A lot of people, I'm a silent person, but I'm learning now that you have to communicate, because that's why the divorce rate is so extremely high, because the communication is lack with people. And that one tool can help. Counseling helps, You may not be able to go to the pastor all the time, or you may want to just go to a psychologist or something like that. There's someone that you can talk to, but make sure it's someone that you don't know. Because if you go to a family member, 9 times out of 10, one person is going to take that side or whatever, and it's going to cause confusion. So, yeah.
Well, that's powerful advice. And, it is my hope that the domestic violence rate will actually decrease, and that, women will be able to, not just women victims of domestic violence, will be able to get the help they need and to stay free of it. There's nothing like it when there's one thing to hear about, oh, somebody went through this and they got slapped or they got punched or whatever. And then there's a whole nother thing to experience that. And, so my heart goes out to you. And again, congratulations for breaking free. But you also went back to school and all this other stuff. How did you do all of this with children and life and overcoming? Talk to us. What did you do? How did you use grit to do all of this?
You learn to juggle. You learn to juggle. I went to school at night and I ended up getting my phlebotomy license. And then I went to Taylor College during the day when they were in school. to further my nursing. And then with Rasmussen, same thing during the day. And it was like, now I still want to go back, even though I only have one in the home. I still want to go back and further my education, life coaching, and things like that. So
yes,
I feel like I've wasted so many years of holding back and not doing it and being like confined and isolated. So it's like, now you can't stop me. I'm going to get all the education I can, and I'm going to utilize it to help someone else.
Excellent. And how did you get grit to love again? Because I know you went through it, and I mean, I understand, like, when you've been heartbroken or crushed or mistreated, it's hard sometimes to want to open back up again, because you're like, oh God, I don't want to be hurt again. Like, I don't know if he's gonna love me. Like, I mean, I already went through this, so I don't know if I give this person a chance. And that's why some of us out here are single, because that question of, I don't know if this person is going to hurt me. Like, so how did you get enough grit to kind of overcome that, to give love a chance again?
Time, patience, and isolation. Isolation to myself, because I needed to find out who I was before I could even open up to anyone else. Time heals wounds. I just didn't think about dating anyone. I wanted to, but then I was like, the dating pool now is like,
oh my word.
Yeah, not the sugar mom thing or none of that. I'm not doing any of that. So I buried myself into traveling. And then I had to be patient with myself. You know how we want to be in something and you just jump in it, and then you're like, what did I do? So I stayed single from 2009 up until like 2016. My high school sweetheart, we dated in 1990. It was a miscommunication of why we broke up. And then through the years, we always knew that we loved each other. I would see him, I would take off the other way. He would see me, he was in his own little world. So he was never on social media. So in 2016, he found himself on Facebook. I saw him, he saw a picture of me, it was instant. From there, we dated from 2016, and we got engaged in 2021, December 2021.
Wow.
And we just got married in October.
Congratulations.
2022. So thank you. So the love had always been there. And it's like, they say butterflies, but when you know it's that person and you guys connect, you're not going to always be perfect or anything. But when you have so many similarities and that love is still there, nothing is impossible. God will let you know that that's the person that you are destined to be with.
Wow, that's powerful. And that's good to hear. Oh my gosh. Well, I celebrate you, and I celebrate the bounce back. This is beautiful. And I pray that, you'll be able to help so many others and inspire them and get on some stages and tell your story, because it's very inspirational and very uplifting to see the whole package, And so with that said, do you have any last minute nuggets or suggestions for the listeners on how can they harness grit? How can they cultivate grit to thrive in their lives?
Never second guess your thoughts. Know who you are. Know what you are worth. Love yourself enough not to settle, no matter what. And whatever situation that you may go through in life, it's a test for a testimony. Embrace it. Never question God like I did, because everything is for a purpose. And each day, empower yourself. I say, get up, put Post-its on the mirror in the bathroom, something about yourself. If you're beautiful, you're smart, get up and tell yourself that until you start to feel it. Because if you don't motivate yourself with affirmations, then you're going to be stuck in that hole. So just have great resilience in time, progress in your life, and you'll make it. So that's the grit.
Excellent. Love it. So thank you so much, Darnitha. And so quickly, for those that want to get in touch with you later, how can we reach out to you on social media or via email?
Okay, I'm on Facebook as Darnitha Johnson. My email is Dawn, DAWN, Gaskin, GASKIN 9 @gmail.com. I could give them my phone number. I'm not sure if you want me to do that.
I would not. Now I'm going to share the email again. It's Dawn Gaskin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At Gmail.
Yeah. I can't change the last name yet because I have so many. I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
I get it. So is that correct information?
Put 9 after Gaskin.
Okay, 1 second. The number 9?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys. So listen. So here's her information. Facebook is Darnitha Johnson, and her email is dongaskin9 @gmail.com. She's available for speaking. She's available for life coaching, consulting, and if you want her to come speak at your event, whether that's a church or some other type of professional event, women's event, business event, she is here for you. And if you want to partner with her and her nonprofit, which is Royal Queens Women Empowerment Incorporated. So if you want to link with her and come up with some ideas as to how you guys can help those that are overcoming domestic violence so that they can thrive through grit, then contact Darnitha as soon as possible. So here's her information again. And so with that said, Darnitha, thank you. It is a high honor to have you on this show. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'm looking forward to many great days ahead and to staying connected with you. So with that said, guys, listen, thank you so much for joining the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. If you are wanting to be on the show, please make sure you send me your photo and a bio to india.white.123@gmail.com, and we will get you guys slotted. And I'm just so thankful again to host you guys and to just show you how you can thrive through grit. So no matter what, remember, take grit with you. Let's get gritty. Let's stay gritty. You guys got this. Okay. So I'll see you next time.